What we have done in last class, we were talking about continuous integration. What is continuous integration? Why is it so important? So those kind of stuff we were talking about. Now we will continue with the same. So we keep our code ready to ship. That means you should be in the condition all the time that you are ready to give your code, you are ready to deliver. So I told you one thing in last class, that the point here is to be technologically ready. It is not like functionally ready. Obviously your modules can be dependent on some another modules, because of which they seem to be not working right now in first iteration demo or second iteration demo. So that is fine, that is not the aim here. The aim here is the technological point of view. From the technological point of view, you are ready to deliver it. You are ready to say that yes, I have completed work on this particular story. So that is the purpose of continuous integration. And collisions are more likely when you are making wide ranging changes. And basically the reason is, whenever you are doing changes, any change in any story, in any coding part, you have to tell your fellows, you have to tell your colleagues of the team. Next, short cycles, I mean, short developments make integration less painful. So it is advisable in extreme programming that you work on shorter cycles, short time, and in those short times you develop, you do small changes. So that's why it will lead you to less number of collisions, and everybody will be able to see what is going on. So directly jumping on long things, large things is not advisable. Okay, so that you have to remember over here. Next thing, how to practice your continuous integration. So actually it is a regular practice that you have to follow. So integrate your code every few hours, whatever you are doing. You have to keep in your mind that you have to integrate it in very less time, and keep your build, test, and other release infrastructure up to date. Keep all the things ready. It should not be like you are still on the last version and your new version is half done. So that kind of stuff should not be there. You should keep in your mind the deadlines of your week one. Like, naturally it happens in extreme programming that one story or 4 to 10 stories are being delivered in 1 week. So you have time of 1 week, so keep that thing in your mind that you have to complete your stuff at least before one day if it is possible. So that is the way to practice the integration. Another thing, for integration purpose, you have to update your sandbox. I hope you remember this term, sandbox. What is the meaning of sandbox? Sandbox is your individual environment, your what you have done on your individual machine. Those all things you are keeping in one sandbox as central repository for future use or for any bug fixes. So that is sandbox. So to integrate, update your sandbox with the latest code from the repository. Make sure everything builds, then commit your code back to repository. So these are some things that you have to follow to practice good continuous integration. Next thing, you can integrate anytime you have a successful build. Successful build means your code is ready. That is the meaning of successful build. So anytime when you are ready, you can integrate things. With test driven development, I hope you remember this term again, test driven development, TDD. We have discussed about it so many times. So this test driven development also, it should happen every few minutes, which will help out in integration. Obviously, if you're testing out your builds, it will help you out to integrate it in continuous manner. So that is the purpose of test driven development again. Next thing, give me a second. Next thing, what you have to remember, each integration should get as close to a real release as possible. That means, what is the meaning of this line? Your integration should not be like it is leading towards nowhere. that you are doing some coding, you are working on one project, but sometimes it happens that we mislead the things. We have to develop something else, but because of some reasons we have developed, and it can lead to nowhere. Our goal is to get release our complete product. So your integration should be in the way which are leading you slowly or gradually towards the final product. That should be the aim. Okay, so that pace basically it is talking about you have to maintain. So that is about how to practice continuous integration. Some points you have to remember, and overall you can remember these 2 points, which will help you out to create answers or to think by yourself what you can do to practice continuous integration. And these kind of terms like sandbox, test driven development, these two terms you have to remember in practicing continuous integration. So if we are talking about sandbox, that means we are talking about keep things up to date in sandbox. Test driven development, that means you are making test cases and you are doing testing in continuous manner regularly. Last one, the most important part of adopting continuous integration is getting people to agree, integrate frequently. In every few hours, the team members have to integrate the codes and never to break the build. So that is basically it comes under adopting continuous integration. So that kind of thinking should be there. Okay, yes, I am ready to integrate and I am ready for this thing that I will help out in continuous integration and I will work in that manner only. Agreement is the key to adopting continuous integration because there is no way to force people not to break the bill. Obviously you can't force people for anything if they're not willing to do. If someone is doing forcefully something in a team, that means they are unhappy to do that and they will not give their 100% for sure. It happens everywhere, not even in this XP team. Everywhere it happens. So obviously extreme programming says don't force people for this thing. Some people are having slow kind of speed to do work, some people are very fast to do work. So actually that's why you should ask your team members at what time we should integrate, what is a good time to integrate, and when you will be ready according to you. So these kind of things you should communicate with each other, and that's why communication is one of the very crucial factors of extreme programming. Okay, so that's all about your continuous integration, and I'll move to next slide. Next topic is your collective code ownership. I told you about this term in starting of some classes. I think third or fourth maybe. So what is the meaning of this collective code ownership? The meaning of it, there is no one owner to the code. That means if I'm superior, I should not take all the credits to that code. That should not be my thinking. That I have developed it. That means I will say yes, yes, yes. I'm more superior than you and I have done it. So that kind of thinking should not be there. That is the motto of this extreme programming. And we all together are responsible for this high quality code. If someone is giving some inputs to me for my code, I have to accept it. If I'm finding some errors or some defects in someone else's code, I have to tell it. So that kind of environment is required for producing high quality code. That is the purpose. One more thing that you should know over here in collective code ownership, like it basically this kind of practice of code collective code ownership, it spreads responsibility for maintaining the code to all the programmers, and everyone shares responsibility for the quality of code. No single person claims ownership over any part of the system, and anyone can make necessary changes anywhere. Actually, when we talk in theory about these things, it seems so easy to talk about, but practically it is sometimes it happens that it becomes so messy that everyone is working on everything. I mean, just imagine it. There are four people in a team and everyone is working on everything. Um, Everyone can't be a programmer, everyone can't be a designer, everyone can't be like you can say the tester. So sometimes it becomes messy. That's why what comes into the picture, that you have to ask questions, you have to ask them. If you are not aware about some code, if you are not aware about some particular programming language that is being followed by the team, then you at least have to try to know the basics of it and what is going on with the code. So that kind of stuff you should know as a team member of the extreme programming team. But yes, it happens in extreme programming, and that's why most of the companies, inside the companies, if you are asking your team that you have to work on extreme programming, first they think a lot that whether it will be possible or not, because in real time scenarios, in real life, it is not possible to have that much of good communication between 5 or 6 people. I mean, that much of healthy environment between 5 or 6 people who are working together. But it is regular practice, and once you will develop it, it will be very fruitful for future. Okay, next, the improved quality code. It may be the most important part of collective code ownership. Collective ownership allows no experts, everyone to fix problems they find. If you encounter duplication, unclear names, or even poorly designed code, it doesn't matter who wrote it, it is your code, fix it. So I hope you understood it, what I'm trying to say and what extreme programming says. Okay, it is not like if you have developed something and I am looking at it, yes, you are doing something wrong, then I will be kept quiet and I will let you do whatever you are doing. So that is not extreme programming says. I will interrupt you and I will say ki you have to change it. Even I can say ki if you are not present, in your absence also I can make the changes. So completely, as a team member, whoever you are, the product manager, the domain expert, the integration designer, the team member, tester, programmer, coder, whatever you are in the team, whatever role you are playing, it's your code, you have to fix it. Whenever you are you're feeling like yes, this is a problem, fix it if you're capable of it. Okay, next thing, making collective ownership work. So how you will make it work, that this collective ownership thing. So basically, first we'll go through this particular paragraph that is written over here. So collective ownership, this code ownership, it requires letting go of little bit of ego that we were just discussing from starting of this topic. Rather than taking pride of your code, take pride in your team's code, and go in a unity. Rather than complaining when someone edits your code, enjoy how code improves when you are not working on it. Rather than pushing your personal design vision, discuss design possibilities with other programmers and agree on a shared solution. It seems like a like picture. Obviously, we are talking about so good things. Everyone is helping out each other so much, but it takes really lot of time to be in such kind of scenario. Seriously, it doesn't happen so easily. No. Okay. Another thing in making it work is about that it requires a joint commitment from team members to produce good code. Whenever you see a problem, fix it. When you are writing new code, don't do a half-hearted job and assume somebody else will fix your mistakes. So write the best code you can. So that kind of thing you have to keep in your mind. If you're working in an XP team, give your 100% in everything. Don't feel like, if in this kind of scenario, you can utilize the words like energized work. You have to work with the energy in an energized manner, and so those kind of practices you can utilize here. And you have to maintain a sustainable pace. So that XP practice also you can mention over here. Next thing is working with unfamiliar code. Obviously, it happens. Unfamiliar code means, I will tell you what is it. So first we'll go through this particular line that is written over here. So if you are working on a project that has knowledge silos, In other words, what is the meaning of this line? Little pockets of code that only one or two people understand. Knowledge silos means that everyone in the team is not understanding that part, only one or two people understand. Then collective code ownership might seem daunting. Uh, how can you take ownership of a code that you don't understand? Obviously that is a risk, that is a problem, actually not a risk I should say, that is a problem actually. So to begin, take advantage in this kind of scenario. If you are having some unfamiliar code which you are not aware about, then what you have to do, take help of peer programming. So pair programming will help you understand the code, will help you understand the complete scenario. When somebody picks a task involving code you don't understand, volunteer to pair with him. You go and you take, yeah, I will do pair programming with you, and then try to understand the things. Next, that is the main thing that you have to remember over here. And next thing, okay, exactly, if pair programming is not even working in this kind of scene, then at least rely on your inference skills. You don't need to know exactly what's happening in every line of code. In a well designed system, all you need to know is what each package is responsible for. So please focus on this line, and don't annotate in between if someone is putting lines or some. Wait, okay, because your names are visible to me if someone is annotating in between. Okay. Now see, what you have to remember in this last thing, working with unfamiliar code, that if any case nothing is working, that you are not able to understand what is going on, but at least try to know what packages you are working on, and what each package is responsible for. Then you can infer high level class responsibilities and method behaviors from their names, because in coding standards it happens that you have to give the names of class and methods which is common to all the members of team, and everyone should understand just by the name of the class and methods what is it responsible for. So at least you will try to understand, you will get to know something about the code. So that is all about working with unfamiliar code. Next, we'll move to next topic. See, last one about your, I think, third unit, releasing. This is last topic of it, documentation. So we still have 5 minutes, and I will try to cover it complete. Okay. And in next class, we will discuss about planning phase. And in planning phase, that is unit number 4. Okay. So till now, I think we have gone through almost all of the topics of unit number 2 and 3. I think unit number 1, half portion we have covered complete, XP cycle and thinking part, thinking phase complete. So if you are taking advantage of these online lectures now, it will be very easy for you to prepare this subject. I'm telling you, believe me, seriously. Now this thing, documentation. What is this documentation part, and how it helps? So documentation, I'll tell you, extreme programming doesn't say to document. Document means the first thing we get in our mind is you are writing everything. But extreme programming doesn't say that. The tagline of documentation in extreme programming is we communicate necessary information effectively. Documentation in extreme programming doesn't say you are writing everything. It means you are communicating in an effective way. And that is the purpose of documentation in extreme programming. I will tell you how it happens. So let's go through this line first. What is written over here? Communication happens all the time in a project. Sometimes it helps you get your work done. You ask specific question, you get the specific answer, and you use that particular answer to solve a specific problem. So your work is done. You are done with it. This is the purpose of work in progress documentation, such as requirements documents and design documents. That means you are asking some questions, you have some questions regarding some requirements, you have some questions regarding some designs. And there are some another type of documentations also, that is hand off documentation, that is written over here. So how these kind of documentations will help you? Now, it can mean that written instructions for end users or detailed specification or an explanation of APIs and their use. Still, these are all forms of communication only. That's the common thing between them. If we are talking about work in progress documentation, like requirement documentation, design documentation, even if we are talking about product documentation, that means that or handoff documentation, we are talking about APIs, explanation of APIs you are utilizing or detailed specifications. But all in extreme programming, we are talking about communication while we are talking about documentation. That means you have some specific questions and you are asking it. If you are getting the correct answer, your problem is solved. That means the purpose of documentation is solved. Now, one by one, we will go through them. Work in progress documentation. What is work in progress documentation? See. So in extreme programming, the whole team sits together to promote first type of communication. Close contact with domain experts and utilization of ubiquitous language. I hope now you understand these terms, ubiquitous language, domain experts. They create a powerful tradition which transmits information whenever it is necessary. So the practice of sitting together is one thing. There is no substitute for face-to-face communication. Even a phone call also is not that much effective as much as face-to-face communication. And in work in progress documentation, XP team also utilizes test-driven development to create a comprehensive test. Okay, so these terms you have to remember: sitting together, ubiquitous language, utilization of ubiquitous language, face-to-face communication, test-driven development. When done well, this captures and communicates details about implementation decisions and other things. So, okay, I think we are out of time, and I will keep this lecture up to work in progress documentation only. So what you have to remember in this one, I will make you recall again. You have to talk about sit together, that people are discussing with each other what are the things going on. If there are any issues, any doubts, they can ask face to face. Next thing, test driven development. A particular test suite is being created for testing out the things. That thing you have to remember, and utilization of ubiquitous language. So that's it for this session. If you are having any doubts, please message me in chat box. Let me stop sharing it and we'll continue with the same. Okay, then I'll wind up the class and I'll meet you tomorrow. Bye.